A game is structured form of play, usually undertaken for enjoyment and sometimes used as an educational tool. Games are distinct from work, which is usually carried out for remuneration, and from art, which is more often an expression of aesthetic or ideological elements. However, the distinction is not clear-cut, and many games are also considered to be work or art. Key components of games are goals, rules, challenge, and interaction. Games generally involve mental or physical stimulation, and often both. Many games help develop practical skills, serve as a form of exercise, or otherwise perform an educational, simulational, or psychological role. Attested as early as 2600 BC, games are a universal part of human experience and present in all cultures. The royal game of Senate, and Mancala are some of the oldest known games. Definitions. Ludwig Wittgenstein was probably the first academic philosopher to address the definition of the word game. In his philosophical investigations, Wittgenstein argued that the elements of games, such as play, rules, and competition, all fail to adequately define what games are. From this, Wittgenstein concluded that people apply the term game to a range of disparate human activities that bear to one another only what one might call family resemblances. As the following game definitions show, this conclusion was not a final one, and today many philosophers, like Thomas Herker, think that Wittgenstein was wrong and that Bernard Suit's definition is a good answer to the problem. Roger Caillois. French sociologist Roger Caillois, in his book Les Jeux et les Hommes, defined a game as an activity that must have the following characteristics. Fun. The activity is chosen for its light-hearted character. Separate. It is circumscribed in time and place. Uncertain. The outcome of the activity is unforeseeable. Non-productive. Participation does not accomplish anything useful. Governed by rules. The activity has rules that are different from everyday life. Fictitious. It is accompanied by the awareness of a different reality. Chris Crawford. Computer game designer Chris Crawford, founder of the Journal of Computer Game Design, has attempted to define the term game using a series of dichotomies. Creative expression is art if made for its own beauty, and entertainment if made for money. A piece of entertainment is a plaything if it is interactive. Movies and books are cited as examples of non-interactive entertainment. If no goals are associated with a plaything, it is a toy. A toy can become a game element if the player makes up rules, and The Sims and SimCity are toys, not games, if it has goals. A plaything is a challenge. If a challenge has no active agent against whom you compete, it is a puzzle. If there is one, it is a conflict. Finally, if the player can only outperform the opponent, but not attack them to interfere with their performance, the conflict is a competition. However, if attacks are allowed, then the conflict qualifies as a game. Crawford's definition may thus be rendered as an interactive, goal-oriented activity made for money, with active agents to play against, in which players can interfere with each other. A game is a form of art in which participants, termed players, make decisions in order to manage resources through game tokens in the pursuit of a goal. According to this definition, some games that do not involve choices, such as Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, and War, are not technically games any more than a slot machine is. A game is an activity among two or more independent decision-makers seeking to achieve their objectives in some limiting context. At its most elementary level, then, we can define game as an exercise of voluntary control systems in which there is an opposition between forces, confined by a procedure and rules in order to produce a disequilibrial outcome. A game is a form of play with goals and structure. To play a game is to engage in activity directed toward bringing about a specific state of affairs, using only means permitted by specific rules. Where the means permitted by the rules are more limited in scope than they would be in the absence of the rules, and where the sole reason for accepting such limitation is to make possible such activity. When you strip away the genre differences and the technological complexities, all games share four defining traits: a goal, rules, a feedback system, and voluntary participation. Gameplay elements and classification. Games can be characterized by what the player does. This is often referred to as gameplay. Major key elements identified in this context are tools and rules that define the overall context of game. Tools. Games are often classified by the components required to play them. In places where the use of leather is well established, the ball has been a popular game piece throughout recorded history, resulting in a worldwide popularity of ball games such as rugby, basketball, football, cricket, tennis, and volleyball. Other tools are more idiosyncratic to a certain region. Many countries in Europe, for instance, have unique standard decks of playing cards. Other games such as chess may be traced primarily through the development and evolution of its game pieces. Many game tools are tokens, meant to represent other things. A token may be a pawn on a board, play money, or an intangible item such as a point scored. Games such as hide-and-seek or tag do not utilize any obvious tool. Rather, their interactivity is defined by the environment. Games with the same or similar rules may have different gameplay if the environment is altered. For example, hide-and-seek in a school building differs from the same game in a park. An auto race can be radically different depending on the track or street course, even with the same cars. Rules. Whereas games are often characterized by their tools, they are often defined by their rules. While rules are subject to variations and changes, enough change in the rules usually results in a new game. For instance, baseball can be played with real baseballs or with wiffle balls. However, if the players decide to play with only 3 bases, they are arguably playing a different game. There are exceptions to this in that some games deliberately involve the changing of their own rules. But even then there are often immutable meta-rules. Rules generally determine turn order, the rights and responsibilities of the players, and each player's goals. Play rights may include when they may spend resources or move tokens. Common win conditions are being first to amass a certain quota of points or tokens, having the greatest number of tokens at the end of the game, or some relationship of one's game tokens to those of one's opponent. Skill, strategy, and chance. A game's tools and rules will result in its requiring skill, strategy, luck, or a combination thereof, and are classified accordingly. Games of skill include games of physical skill, such as wrestling, tug-of-war, hopscotch, target shooting, and stake, and games of mental skill such as checkers and chess. Games of strategy include checkers, chess, go, Aramar, and tic-tac-toe, and often require special equipment to play them. Games of chance include gambling games, as well as snakes and ladders and rock, paper, scissors. Most require equipment such as cards or dice. However, most games contain 2 or all 3 of these elements. For example, American football and baseball involve both physical skill and strategy, while Tiddlywinks, poker, and Monopoly combine strategy and chance. Many card and board games combine all 3. Most trick-taking games involve mental skill, strategy, and an element of chance, as do many strategic board games such as Risk, Settlers of Catan, and Carcassonne. Single-player games. Most games require multiple players. However, single-player games are unique in respect to the type of challenges a player faces. Unlike a game with multiple players competing with or against each other to reach the game's goal, a one-player game is a battle solely against an element of the environment, against one's own skills, against time, or against chance. Playing with a yo-yo or playing tennis against a wall is not generally recognized as playing a game due to the lack of any formidable opposition. It is not valid to describe a computer game as single-player where the computer provides opposition. If the computer is merely record-keeping, then the game may be validly single-player. Many games described as single-player may be termed actually puzzles or recreations.